With the price of used Infiniti G35s and G37s and Nissan 350Zs and 370Zs going so far down, there's been a lot of growing interest in the VQ platform. Now, while the VQ engine might not be as special as something like the RB26, it's still a great platform if you want to build a mild street car. In a recent video, we covered the VQ35DE and the VQ35HR, and it was pretty clear that the HR is definitely the superior engine. In the comments of that video, I noticed a lot of you guys wanted to see a similar video comparing the VQ35HR to the VQ37VHR. After all, the VHR is the next evolution of the VQ motor, and a lot of you wanted to know if it was really better than the VQ35HR. So today we're going to dive in, compare them, find out the differences, and which one is better. As we found in the DE versus HR video, a lot of Nissan engines look really similar from the outside looking in, but with every new engine, Nissan makes major changes that are a little bit harder to find or a little bit harder to notice. You really have to dive in to understand the changes that Nissan made and why they made them. And this is exactly the case with the HR and the VHR. From the outside looking in, it might appear as though they're the same engine, except one has a little bit more displacement, but there are some significant changes that Nissan made. Just like when Nissan went from the DE to the HR, when they went from the HR to the VHR, their whole goal was to increase power and decrease emissions output. Now, starting from the top down, we can look at the intake manifolds, where the HR and VHR are actually very similar, and they both have that dual throttle body design, but the VHR has shorter intake runners. Shorter intake runners will generally give you less low-end torque and more top-end power, which really isn't an issue for the VHR because Nissan compensated for that, so it has just as much low-end torque as an HR, which we'll explain a little bit further on. Also, for some strange reason, Nissan decided to change the bolt pattern on the VHR intake manifold. And they basically changed it for no reason. They literally just moved the bolt holes a little bit, so you can't swap around intake manifolds, but there's legitimately no reason for that. Moving from the intake manifolds down to the cylinder heads, there are some significant changes that Nissan made and some really cool technologies that they used on the VHR head. And most of the important changes revolve around each engine's unique variable valve timing system. On the HR, you'll find dual variable valve timing that uses hydraulically actuated continuously variable valve timing for the intake cams and an electromagnetically actuated cam phaser on the exhaust side. This system offers a high degree of flexibility in setting valve timing to improve combustion efficiency over a wide range of engine speeds. On the VHR, you'll find Nissan's VVEL system on the intake side. This system is unique from the typical variable valve timing and lift system because the lift of the camshaft is continuously variable and so is the timing. The huge benefit to having continuously variable lift is the ability to effectively use the intake valves to control airflow into the engine instead of the throttle bodies. And you might be wondering, why would you want to use your intake valves instead of your throttle bodies? All right, the throttle bodies are already there. The VHR has two of them, so why on earth would you want to use the intake valves to control airflow into the engine? And it has to do with pumping loss and vacuum. By using the intake valves to control airflow at low throttle amounts, you can pretty much eliminate this pumping loss entirely, which simply means more efficiency, at least in theory. Another interesting benefit to the system is reduced camshaft wear, since the intake valve lift can be kept pretty small when the throttle is open very small amounts. On top of that, the VVEL system also improves throttle response, and it helps improve the power curve of the VHR. VVEL doesn't really increase peak power all that much, but it does provide more low-end and mid-range torque, and basically helps to flatten the torque curve and give you a more linear power delivery. This might sound really minor, but a really good linear power delivery is something that you want in every street car, and it makes every single car way better. To help minimize friction on the HR and VHR engines, Nissan used a hydrogen-free diamond-like coating for the valve lifters. But it's simply the DLC coating results in a 40% reduction in friction. Another notable difference in the heads is that the VHR has better exhaust ports and flows more air on the exhaust side. Now, moving down to the bottom end, one of the big and obvious differences is the fact that one of these engines is a 3.7 liter and another one is a 3.5 liter. Which, if you didn't know, that's what the 35 and 37 stand for in their name. Interestingly enough, although there's a difference in displacement, these two engines actually use the same exact block, which I didn't believe at first, but if you look up the part number is valid for both the HR and the VHR. Now, they increase displacement by increasing stroke from 81.4 millimeters to 86 millimeters and leaving the bore the same since the blocks are the same. Of course, increasing the throw of the crankshaft also means that the connecting rods have to be a little bit shorter if Nissan wanted to retain the same deck height. So the connecting rods on the VHR are 2.28 millimeters shorter than the rods on the HR. From the info I was able to find, the VHR rods are just slightly stronger than the HR rods, but I found a lot of contradicting information with a lot of people saying that the HR rods were just as good as the VHR rods. So if somebody could let me know down in the comments below which one is for sure better, because I couldn't find a clear answer. Now, another noticeable difference that you'll find in the bottom end is the fact that the VHR has a higher 11:1 compression ratio compared to the HR's 10.4:1 compression ratio. Now, the increased compression ratio basically just improves efficiency and helps the engine make more power. But if you wanted to boost your VQ, that increased compression ratio is going to become a problem, and you would need to run lower compression pistons. Whereas on the HR, you might be able to get by with those 10.6:1 compression ratio pistons if you run a high grade fuel. I know we covered a lot very fast, but that's pretty much all the major differences between the HR and the VHR, and they're surprisingly similar. And according to Nissan's press release from 2007, about 35% of the parts on the VHR are different than they are on the HR. The important differences here are that the VHR has VVEL on the intake side and lacks any variable valve timing on the exhaust side. Supposedly the exhaust ports are better on the VHR. Both engines use the same exact block, and the increase in displacement from 3.5 liters to 3.7 liters. Both engines are actually really good, and they're far superior than the DE. And pretty much every change that Nissan made from the DE to the HR and then from the HR to the VHR, there's really no bad changes that they made. Every single change that they made either made the engines more reliable or make more power. And there's really nothing bad about the HR or VHR that wasn't found on earlier engines. In this case, I think it's pretty clear that the VHR is the better engine, because in stock form, it really is just better in every single way. Unfortunately, swapping from a DE to an HR or VHR isn't a very simple process, and it's super involved. Swapping to an HR to a VHR is a little bit easier, but it's still a very involved process. So if you guys think there's anything I missed or anything you want to add, please let me know down in the comments below. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I will miss a key important piece of information. So if there's anything you want to add, let me know down in the comments below. While you guys are down there, hit the thumbs up button. It really helps out the channel, it helps out the video, and it tells YouTube to put this video in front of more people. While you're down there, be sure to also hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon so that you get notifications when we upload new videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.